This is TradeFlow News, bringing you relevant news and insights from around the world. TradeFlow News, enabling trade for SMEs and economies worldwide.
These are some of the key topics that we will be looking into in today's program.
First, let's take a look at the overnight headlines which are impacting the commodity markets.
U.S. President Donald Trump arrived in Saudi Arabia on Tuesday at the start of a four-day visit to the wealthy Gulf region, focusing more on economic deals than regional security matters ranging from war in Gaza to talks on Iran's nuclear program. With a who's who of powerful American business leaders in tow, Trump is visiting Riyadh, site of a Saudi-U.S. investment forum, before going to Qatar on Wednesday and the United Arab Emirates on Thursday. While energy remains a cornerstone of our relationship, the investments and business opportunities in the kingdom have expanded and multiplied many times over, Saudi Investment Minister Khalid Al-Fallah said as he opened the forum.
Oil prices held steady on Tuesday, weighed down by rising supplies and caution over whether the pause in the US-China trade war will lead to a longer-term deal. Brent crude futures gained 9 cents, or 0.14%, to $65.05 a barrel by 08:03 GMT. U.S. West Texas Intermediate crude was up 11 cents, or about 0.2%, at $62.06. The two benchmarks rose by about 4% or more in the previous session after the US and China agreed on sharp reductions to tariffs for at least 90 days, which also boosted Wall Street stocks and the dollar.
Moving on to the top news in the energy sector.
Saudi Arabia's crude oil supply to China will hold steady in June after hitting the highest in more than a year in the previous month, trade sources said on Tuesday, following OPEC+ decision to increase output. State oil firm Saudi Aramco will ship about 48 million barrels to China in June, a tally of allocations to Chinese refiners showed, the same as in May, which was the highest amount since at least 2024, according to Reuters data. Chinese state-owned refiner Sinochem and private refiners including Rongsheng Petrochemical and Hengli Petrochemical will all be lifting more Saudi crude in June, while Sinopec, CRAC and Aramco's joint venture Fujian refinery will be lifting less.
The European Union does not intend to revive its imports of Russian energy after a potential peace deal between Ukraine and Russia, the bloc's energy commissioner said on Tuesday. The European Union is very clear, we do not wish energy from Russia in the future. We don't wish it now, and we will not wish it after a peace, Dan Jorgensen told reporters at a meeting of EU ministers in Warsaw. Next, we have the top news in metal markets. Copper prices were range-bound on Tuesday, with the most traded contract on the Shanghai Futures Exchange, SHFE, edging lower, as lingering caution tempered relief from a U.S.-China tariff truce aimed at easing trade tensions. The SHFE contract was up 0.1% at 78,090 yuan, $10,859.86 per ton, as of 0700 GMT. The benchmark copper on the London Metal Exchange was up 0.5% at $9,567 a metric ton, as caution persisted despite a trade agreement between Beijing and Washington on Monday. The joint U.S.-China statement pledging to reduce tit-for-tat tariffs for 90 days and work toward ending their trade war lifted industrial metals on Monday.
Iron ore futures touched a more than 2-week high on Tuesday, supported by a temporary trade agreement between the U.S. and China, although caution over a final deal and potentially slower near-term demand capped gains. The most traded September iron ore contract on China's Dalian Commodity Exchange closed daytime trade 1.06% higher at 714 yuan and 50 fen, $99.34 a metric ton. The benchmark June iron ore on the Singapore Exchange, however, slid 0.7% to $99.03 a ton as of 0700 GMT after touching its highest since April 24 at $100.35 earlier.
We will now look at the top news in the agricultural sector.
Malaysia's palm oil stocks jumped to their highest level in 6 months in April, as production surged to a decade high for the month while local consumption dropped, data from the industry regulator showed on Tuesday. The rise in inventory in Malaysia, the world's second-largest palm oil producing country after Indonesia, could weigh on benchmark futures, traders said. Malaysia's palm oil stocks increased for a second consecutive month in April, rising 19.4% from March to 1.87 million metric tons, the highest since October, the Malaysian Palm Oil Board said.
That is all for today's news on commodity markets. Stay tuned to TradeFlow News as we continue to provide you with more updates. We also invite you to follow us on Twitter at TradeFlow News, which allows you to watch our program on your mobile device or desktop to receive information from there.